Namaste, and welcome to our continuing series on the life divine with our beloved brother, Ranga. We are in chapter 21, The Ascent of Life, beginning with the sentence, the terms of the problem presuppose the full emergence of mind. And you'll have to give the page number.
Yeah. The page is 214. 214. It's the last two lines of that page. 214.
What edition do you have?
Pardon?
Do you have
This is the CWSA.
Yeah, see, I'll have to ask Ravi if he can give me that because I have the
slightly
old edition.
different. Yeah. So we read the para first, and then we come back to it. The terms of the problem presuppose the full emergence of mind, for in vitality, without conscious mind, there can be no equation, but only a temporary, unstable equilibrium, ending in the death of the body, the dissolution of the individual, and the dispersal of its elements into the universality. The nature of physical life forbids the idea of an individual form possessing the same inherent power of persistence and therefore of continued individual existence as the atoms of which it is composed. I have to read it this way. Only a mental being supported by the psychic nodus within which expresses or begins to express the secret soul can hope to persist by his power of linking on the past to the future in a stream of continuity which the breaking of the form may break in the physical memory but need not destroy in the mental being itself, and which may, even by an eventual development, bridge over the gap of physical memory created by death and the birth of the body. Even as it is, even in the present imperfect development of embodied mind, the mental being is conscious in the mass of a past and future extending beyond the life of the body. He becomes aware of an individual past, of individual lives that have created his and of which he is a development and modified reproduction, and of future individual lives which his is creating out of itself. He is conscious also of an aggregate life, past and future, through which his own continuity runs as one of its fibers. This, which is evident to physical science in the terms of heredity, becomes otherwise evident to the developing soul behind the mental being in the terms of persistent personality. The mental being, expressive of this soul consciousness, is therefore the nodus of the persistent individual and the persistent aggregate life. In him, their union and harmony become possible. Quite a complex
very
para.
Complex, yeah, very nice.
So we'll have to look at it very carefully.
Slowly.
And I made a mistake. I should have brought that chart because it's talking of the... Anyway, oh, that's great. Wonderful. So, we go back to the beginning. The terms of the problem. So the terms are the terms: division, immortality of atom, mechanical unconscious force, unformed seed of individuality, subconscious will, dumb urge of physical energy, impotence of inert subconscious. These are the terms, and these terms go on changing as it climbs upwards. And each one, we have studied that last time in detail, each one starts going and reaches the perfection in the supermind. So, now let's see what he's saying. The terms of the problem presuppose the full emergence of mind, So when he is talking of the full emergence of mind, he is talking of the sober mind. Otherwise it will be part emergence of mind.
He says presuppose.
Yeah. Presuppose means you have to start with that hypothesis.
Right.
Yeah. You have to suppose with that. For in vitality, without conscious mind, there can be no equation, but only a temporary unstable equilibrium. So, I have made a note. Let me see what equation is there. This equation is division and fusion. The equation between, we have seen that there is a force of division and there is a force of aggregation. So it has to be balanced. In life, it gets balanced. That's what he's saying. Then,
but he says it's not possible without mind.
That's right. Yeah.
Right.
Because if mind is not there, then that equation cannot be maintained. Okay. Then the temporary unstable equilibrium, what he means, one lifetime in the body. That's what he means by temporary unstable equilibrium. Temporary is one lifetime. Okay, that unstable equilibrium.
Because he says ending in the death of the body.
That's right. Ending in the death of the body, the dissolution of the individual and the dispersal of its elements in the universality. He is talking of dissolution at all the stages. Physical, the body goes back into matter and is reprocessed for other bodies. The vital also goes back into universal prana and gets reprocessed for other vital beings. Same with the mind. So, it gets into the universality. When he's using the word universality, physical universality, prana universality and mind universality. Okay, so now the nature of physical life forbids the idea of an individual form possessing the same inherent power of persistence and therefore of continued individual existence as the atoms of which it is composed. He has told us that the atoms are immortal. But when you come to a human body, the future physical life, the individual cannot exist. It has to, nature reverses the process.
Yes.
Immortality for the atom, death for the living creature. It reverses the process, but immortality for the species. It transfers the immortality to the species. That he has said earlier. Okay, so the nature of physical life beginning from the animal to man. In fact, all the animal forms. Even, why animal only? Why even plants?
Yeah.
Plants can live 400 years, but still there is a limit to plant life. What is the longest that a plant can live?
Possibly,
in California, I heard these.
The redwoods.
Yeah,
I think the redwoods
400 years I heard.
Easily, I think so.
Yeah.
But there's a limit also.
Yes, there's a limit. So, the nature of physical life forbids the idea of an individual form possessing the same inherent power of persistence and therefore of continued individual existence. It cannot have that, as the atoms of which it is composed. Only a mental being, supported by the psychic nodus which expresses or begins to express the secret soul, can hope to persist by his power of linking on the past to the future in a stream of continuity, which the breaking of the form may break in the physical memory but need not destroy in the mental being itself, and which may even by an eventual development bridge over the gap of physical memory created by death and birth of the body.
Very interesting.
Yeah. So what he's saying is that the body may break, but at the mental level, because you have the mind, but it has to be supported by the psychic. In other words, this spiritual development is quite advanced. If it is so, the memory of past lives also is maintained in the mind.
Yes.
That's what he's saying. And sometimes, even in the physical, memory can be there. The last bit he's saying, even the physical memory can be there. Even the linking on the past to the future. In other words, remembrance of different lives. Linking on the past to the future. in a stream of continuity, which the breaking of the form, that is physical death, may break in the physical memory, but need not destroy in the mental being itself, and which may even by an eventual development bridge over the gap of physical memory created by death and the birth of the body. So even a physical memory is possible.
Yeah.
And of course, if you are a sufficiently developed yogi, you can remember all your past lives.
And Mother speaks of her lives, past
Yes,
lives, so
that's
clearly.
right. Yeah. So, even
Do you remember all of them
who?
that Mother spoke of?
She mentioned the Queen of Egypt.
Right.
Then she also mentioned Queen Elizabeth in England.
Yes, yes.
She was a queen there also. Then it is suspected that Jeanne d'Arc also was the mother. But that's not very, very clear, but people here assume that she was Jeanne d'Arc. And she also had a life in Italy as an artist, in which she had not a very pleasant experience.
Not Joan of Arc, though.
Huh?
Joan of Arc?
Jeanne d'Arc is Joan of Arc.
Yes, Jeanne d'Arc.
I'm using the French word.
Right,
Okay,
right.
Joan of Arc, that's right.
Yes.
But is that very clear? Has she declared that?
I didn't get that
And
fully.
then the other one is Mona Lisa.
Yes.
Meera also. With Radha?
Because Champaklal one day was looking at the painting of Mona Lisa and Mother said, "Do you know who the artist is?" And he said, "No, Mother, I don't know." Then she said, "It is Sri Aurobindo."
Leonardo da Vinci.
So we assume that she must have been Mona Lisa also. But that's not 100% sure. It's coming through Champaklal. This is the, and she didn't say that I was Mona Lisa. But we assume that.
Yes.
And also Radha and Meera also.
Pardon?
Radha and Meera?
No, I don't think that is on record. No, that is not on record. And there are very interesting letters about Sri Aurobindo's remembrance of past lives also. And someone, Amal asked him once that were you Lao Tse or Confucius or something like that, he had asked. And Sri Aurobindo said, this game of remembering lives and all that, there's something very interesting later on, we'll come to that.
Yeah.
Then he says that it's a very tricky game. And you forget that Annie Besant is already claiming his personality. And I don't want to be prosecuted for misappropriation of personality.
Wonderful. But they persisted in pestering him
Yes.
about his past lives,
Yes.
and there were two that he wouldn't reply to.
Yes.
Michelangelo and the great warrior,
Augustus Caesar.
Augustus Caesar.
Augustus Caesar was one, he was emperor, right, in Rome, and Leonardo da Vinci.
Right.
These two, but he himself has said that I was in ancient Egypt, Greece.
Ancient Greece.
They asked him, why are you so fond of Dilip Kumar Roy? Then he said that I remember my contact with him in ancient Greece. That's one thing. And also when he was asked about military strategy and all that, they asked him, how do you know so much about military strategies in war? He said, not in this life. So it is assumed that maybe Augustus Caesar's life, after all, he was a king.
Yes.
But that's about all. We don't know more than that.
No.
But then we'll come later on to something else. There's a collective memory also. And that's what he's coming to. It's a very interesting phenomena. We'll come to that. So, even as it is, even in the present imperfect development of embodied mind, the mental being is conscious in the mass of a past and a future extending beyond the life of the body. Okay, so he becomes aware of an individual past, of individual lives that have created his, and of which he is a development and modified reproduction, and of future individual lives which he is creating out of itself. He is conscious also of an aggregate life, past and future, through which his own continuity runs as one of its fibers.
Wow.
This is a very, very interesting sentence, and let me tell you, in those days when Anil Varan was there and others were there, there was a lot of discussion. Pavitrada was there. So they said that Pavitrada has an element of Ramakrishna in him. And they said that in Anil Varan there is an element of Vivekananda in him. I just couldn't understand what this means. What does it mean? This phrase explains that.
It does.
He says that there is a general, there are principles which are getting more and more manifested in the physical world, and different individuals contribute to that aspect at different times. So that explains how Anil Varan can have a touch of Vivekananda in him, and Pavitrada can have a touch of Ramakrishna, because they both represent the same universal principle trying to manifest itself.
I like that, one of its fibers.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
There is a collective thing and the individuals are one of its fibers.
Yes.
So there is a collective memory also. Not only the individual memory can be there, but even collective memory can be there in the race. For instance, we know that there was something like Atlantis long ago. So that is a collective memory, although there is no trace of Atlantis anymore. So there is a collective memory, a race memory also, he calls it.
And the Incas.
Yes,
Yeah, those great landing fields
that's right.
on top of the mountain.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. No one can explain it.
So, so there are collective lives and there is also individual lives contributing to this collective life. This, which is evident to physical science in the terms of heredity, becomes otherwise evident to the developing soul behind the mental being in the terms of persistent personality. This reference to heredity explains the psychological fact. So heredity, what's happening? Suppose your father had a certain trait. It gets passed on to you. It gets passed on to somebody else. That trait is collectively, it's coming down, and different individuals are contributing to that trait. Let's say a trait of generosity, for instance. It's coming down and many are contributing to it. You have contributed to it, your father has contributed to it, maybe your son or your daughter will contribute to it. That which is evident to physical science in terms of heredity, this sentence explains what he's been saying earlier, becomes otherwise evident to the developing soul behind the mental being in the terms of persistent mentality, persistent personality. Srivendra uses the word personality for the body-mind life, the nature, and he uses the word person for the soul. You often with a P cap and personality with a lowercase. He uses in that sense. So here also is very clearly referring to the persistent personality. The nature that is there keeps coming down. The mental being expressive of this soul consciousness is therefore the nodus of the persistent individual and the persistent aggregate life. In him, their union and harmony becomes possible. Okay, so now we go to the next one. Association with love as its secret principle and its emergent summit is the type, the power of this new relation, and therefore the governing principle of the development into the third status of life. The third status of life is mind. The conscious preservation of individuality, along with the consciously accepted necessity and desire of interchange, self-giving and fusion with other individuals, is necessary for the working of the principle of love. For if either is abolished, the working of love ceases, whatever may take its place. Fulfillment of love by entire self-immolation, even with an illusion of self-annihilation, is indeed an idea and an impulse in the mental being. But it points to a development beyond this third status of life. This third status is a condition in which we rise progressively beyond the struggle for life by mutual devouring and the survival of the fittest by that struggle. For there is more and more a survival by mutual help and a self-perfectioning by mutual adaptation, interchange and fusion. Life is a self-affirmation of being, even a development and survival of ego, but a being that has need of other beings, an ego that seeks to meet and include other egos and to be included in their life. The individuals and the aggregates who develop most the law of association and the law of love, of common help, kindliness, affection, comradeship, unity, who harmonize most successfully survival and mutual self-giving, they aggregate increasing the individual and the individual the aggregate, as well as individual increasing individual and aggregate, as well as individual increasing individual and aggregate by mutual interchange will be the fittest for survival in this tertiary status of the evolution. The life, when it comes to the third level of mind, the third status, association and love become the principles. That's what he's saying. Which was earlier survival of the fittest, he says. In life you have mutual devouring, and that mutual devouring changes to love and association. And love and association, there is ego, but the ego recognizes that it needs to have interchange with other egos. So there is a give and take that occurs. That's what he says. We'll read the para. Yeah.
But it's so beautifully written. Oh.
Yeah. Association with love as its secret principle and its emergent summit is the type, the power of this new relation in mind, and therefore the governing principle of the development into the third status of life. Third status of life, from life it is coming to mind, and there association and love become the secret principle. Open it, becomes not secret anymore. The conscious preservation of individuality, along with the consciously accepted necessity and desire of interchange. This is what comes up in the mind plane. In the life plane, it is more a wanting to take, but in the mind plane, it is beginning to understand that it has to give also to receive. The conscious preservation of individuality, which is a factor of life, the conscious preservation of individuality, along with the consciously accepted necessity and desire of interchange, self-giving and fusion with other individuals, is necessary for the working of the principle of love. For if either is abolished, the working of love ceases. So, which is that? There is self-giving and fusion. If any of them is not there, he says love cannot be there. Self-giving and fusion with other is necessary for the working of the principle of love. Is that clear? The conscious preservation of individuality along with the consciously accepted necessity and desire of interchange. You want to preserve yourself and you also want to give yourself. If either of them is not there, love can't work. You need two for love. You need to have your individuality and you need to also give yourself to the other. You can't love yourself. There must be somebody else also with whom you can exchange. That's what is meaning. If the other is not there also, there can be no love. If you are not there also, there can be no love. There has to be both. But this principle is very interesting. In the supreme consciousness, where you feel yourself to be one with the divine, love is possible. Even though you are only one.
Yes.
Otherwise, for love you need two. You need the lover and the loved. But they can become one and still love can exist. Of course, you can have the experience also of only knowledge that you are the supreme without love. That also is possible. But Sri Aurobindo says that even in total union, you can have love. But at lower level, at the mind level, no, you need two. You need the lover and the loved. For if either is abolished, the working of love ceases, whatever may take its place. Fulfillment of love by entire self-immolation, even with an illusion of self-annihilation, is indeed an idea and an impulse in the mental being. But it points to a development beyond this third status of life. Beyond, that's a supermind. After mind comes the supermind. So beyond the third status of life comes the supermind. So,
But I'm not clear on that
okay.
sentence.
So,
Self-immolation,
yeah. Self-immolation means,
self-annihilation.
yeah, okay. I sacrifice myself for the nation or for God. So your self-immolation. It's usually out of love. You love your country and say, I don't mind sacrificing myself. So that is one way. Or self-annihilation means your individuality disappears entirely. That can happen only at the third, fourth level, the supermind.
So immolation is not,
Something negative, no.
no.
In this sense, he is not
Okay,
using in
got
a
it,
negative
got
sense.
it.
Sacrificing with happiness, if you want. In fact, even this principle is there even at the animal level. In insects, sometimes the female insect, after the act of reproduction, eats up the male.
Oh, yes. Yes.
So it's a sort of self-immolation of the male. It's at a very, very low level, but the principle is basically the same. Self-immolation in love. So, now it's clear? So he's saying, at the third level, he's saying, fulfillment of love by entire self-immolation. I love the divine so much, I plunge myself into him and my individuality disappears. So that's a self-immolation, fulfillment of love. So it's not something negative. It's the fulfillment of love.
Yes.
The hint is there towards the end. It says that although it's at a very mental level, this
Yeah.
idea of self-giving, but it points to the development beyond the third
That's right.
status.
That's right.
That's supermind.
Yeah, that's a supermind.
So,
Exactly.
so it may be inferior in the way it's being expressed, but it's pointing to something
That's
much
right.
greater.
Exactly. So it's not something negative, but something positive. Out of sheer self-sacrifice, out of love, happiness, you are giving yourself fully. So, fulfillment of love. If fulfillment of love was not there, then we would have some hesitation. But it's a fulfillment of love, self-immolation, by entire self-immolation, even with an illusion of self-annihilation. Because when you, out of love, if you sacrifice yourself, you may feel that I have disappeared, but you don't. The individuality is still there, he's saying. It's an illusion of self-annihilation.
Yeah, illusion.
It's an illusion. You continue to remain. Even when you merge yourself into the divine, the individuality can still be there in an infinite form. That's what I say. Is indeed an idea and an impulse in the mental being, but it points to a development beyond this third status of life. Third status of life is mind, so therefore it's pointing to supermind. In the chart it is very clear. Then, this third status is a condition in which we rise progressively beyond the struggle for life by mutual devouring and the survival of the fittest by that struggle. He is talking of the mind, third status. For there is more and more a survival by mutual help and a self-perfectioning by mutual adaptation, interchange and fusion. This is something that even at our level, human level, we can understand. Many rich people understand the necessity of charity and donation. So, Bill Gates is constantly making a lot of donations, but that of course the intention is different. The intention is to escape income tax. But still, whatever it is, you have. But the business community in India, they know this. In fact, they say that there has to be a give and a take. They use the words Shubha and Labha. The Marwadis, they say there has to be auspicious action. You can get profit, but you must also give. So this idea is very much there in the Indian business.
So then, the idea of giving is probably coming from that. Probably they'll get more.
Yes, selfishness.
It's not pure.
But it's not real. But it is indicating, again the same thing. It's indicating a higher principle.
Mother also says about the more you give, the more you will receive.
Yes, that's right. That's a concept of sacrifice. But that concept is there even on their, their safe where they keep all their money. They put on one side with haldi, because auspicious, Shubh and Labha. So Labha is profit and Shubha is auspiciousness. So, so they donate. The donations are there. So, this is clear. This third status is a condition in which we rise progressively beyond the struggle for life by mutual devouring and the survival of the fittest by their struggle. For there is more and more a survival by mutual help and a self-perfectioning by mutual adaptation, interchange and fusion. Life is a self-affirmation of being, even a development and survival of ego, but of a being that has need of other beings, an ego that seeks to meet and include other egos and to be included in their life. This is at the life level. The individuals and the aggregates who develop most the law of association and the law of love, of common help, kindliness, affection, comradeship, unity, who harmonize most successfully survival and mutual self-giving, the aggregate increasing the individual and the individual the aggregate, as well as individual increasing individual and aggregate by mutual interchange, will be the fittest for survival in this tertiary status of the evolution. At the mental level, association and love are the principles, whether it be from society to society or society to individual or individual to individual. Give and take must be there. The United Nations was an attempt at this type of association, not that it's working very perfectly, but there will be the fittest for survival in this tertiary status of the evolution. So, we go to the next para.
I wanted to ask you just one off topic.
Yeah.
Do you think that India will ever be allowed to be one of the 5 or 6
In the United Nations?
in the United
It
Nations?
will happen ultimately.
I think so also.
But there's a lot of resistance because of politics and all that, but there is bound to come. In fact, Shrivda says in the Ideal of Human Unity, he says that there are many defects. He wrote this in 1950. There are many defects in the United Nations. The League of Nations was full of defects, so it collapsed. And United Nations came in. Even there are many defects. The perfect United Nations would be equality of all nations, whether they are big or small. But this special status is there for 5 or 6. They are more powerful politically. He says that vitiates the whole thing.
Ah, yes.
So, and he says these defects which are there will get corrected ultimately. So India will get. Very obviously Japan and Germany should be there because they are powerful nations. But their voice is not heard because they created the Second World War. They were the perpetrators of the Second World War. So their voice is not heard. But so Germany, Japan and India are trying. And Brazil also. Because there is a sufficient... Brazil has 200 million population. It's a large country and their economy also is... They are in trouble now, but even then. So it will happen. But when it will happen, we don't know. Everyone agrees that it should happen. France, England and America also keep saying that it will happen.
Yes.
But when it will happen, we don't know.
I guess Russia is not.
Russia also will agree for India.
Yeah.
They will agree.
For India,
Yeah.
yes, yes.
So, we read the next one. This development is significant of the increasing predominance of mind, which we'll read the footnote later. This development is significant of the increasing predominance of mind, which progressively imposes its own law more and more upon the material existence. For mind, by its greater subtlety, does not need to devour in order to assimilate, possess and to assimilate, possess and grow. Rather, the more it gives, the more it receives and grows. And the more it fuses itself with others, the more it fuses others into itself and increases the scope of its being. Physical life exhausts itself by too much giving and ruins itself by too much devouring. But though mind, in proportion as it leans on the law of matter, suffers the same limitation, yet, on the other hand, in proportion as it grows into its own law, it tends to overcome this limitation. And in proportion as it overcomes the material limitation, giving and receiving become one. For in its upward ascent, it grows towards the rule of conscious unity in differentiation, which is the divine law of the manifest Satchidananda. So, you will retain your individuality as well as become one with the others. That's a cosmic consciousness. So, when you make your mind silent and go to the self, you are in the cosmic consciousness, your individuality is maintained, and yet you feel yourself one with everybody else. That's what he's saying. So, it comes at the above the mind, you have this combination of survival of the individual as well as the universal. Both the forces become one. The divine law of the manifest Satchidananda. Unity in differentiation. So, there is a footnote, and we read that footnote for mind. Is an increasing predominance of mind. So the footnote says, what is spoken of here is mind as it acts directly in life, in the vital being, through the heart. Love, the relative principle, not its absolute, is a principle in life, not of mind, but it can possess itself and move towards permanence only when taken up by the mind into its own light. What is called love in the body and the vital parts is mostly a form of hunger without permanence. It's interesting what he's saying. He's saying love at the animal level is, he's not using the word, but it's lust. It's hunger. It's a form of hunger without permanence. Without permanence. Whereas in mind, love can be more permanent. So that's the real principle which comes in. There is love in the animal level, there is love in the human level. Both are imperfect, but more perfect in mind, and it becomes absolutely perfect in the supermind.
Thank you, Ranga.
Okay.
Namaste.